My name is Stephen Foster. I'm a senior high school phys ed teacher turned good life fitness manager turned to a CanFit Pro trainer. I've been teaching and coaching around the world at various levels, from house league to international track and field. If you want to know more about that sort of stuff, I'm sure I can either do another video, or B, you can just read the description anywhere on social media. Just search Coach Mr. Foster. So what I'm doing today is I'm putting together a quick little video for new or aspiring personal trainers that want to better understand posture, or hopefully I can kind of see and make you see the importance of posture. So let's get into it. What are we talking about today? Here's our overview. So what is posture and why is it important? We're going to look at ideal alignment, the implications of poor posture. We're going to focus a lot on length and tension relationships. And then from that, we're going to look at common postural conditions or issues. First, I think it's pretty important that we need to discuss this, but what is posture? So really simply put, posture is the position of the body or relative alignment of body parts. Now, if we wanted to get into a little bit more detail, I got a quote here, and you'll notice on all my slides I've got little citations at the bottom if you want to check that out. This isn't an academic paper. This is a collection of information that I've gathered through years of university and being in the fitness and health industry. So I've done my best to cite everything that I've put down. But regardless, a little bit more detail. Posture is the alignment and maintenance of body segments in certain positions. A definition of good posture is to be in a state of muscular and skeletal balance, which protects the supporting structures of the body against injury or progressive deformity. Now, the key word there is balance. We're going to be talking a lot about that today. Couple key terms. There'll be a few that pop up throughout today, but just stuff we want to get started with is if we look at static versus dynamic. So static posture is obviously when we're stationary, and dynamic posture or mobility, how mobile you are, is we're looking through posture when moving. Then we have intentional. This is when we are consciously standing tall or standing in good posture to impress someone. That's a good example of that. The other one, right, habitual. It's when you're not thinking about it, or slouching at an office desk is a common one there. Moving on, so why is posture important? So it prevents injuries both on and off the field. I'll use an example of the deadlift at the gym versus picking up a pillow at home. This is actually a true story. It happened to a roommate of mine. So despite going to the gym and being able to deadlift safely, he put his back out picking up a pillow. At the gym, you set up for the lift. You know, if you're deadlifting, your shoulders down and back, scaps in your back pocket, load your hamstrings, etc., etc. You're conscious of what your body is doing. However, if you have habitually bad posture and you're performing mundane tasks, you run the risk of eventually injuring yourself because you're not always conscious of how your body is moving. Then we can look at the importance of posture and the ability to move pain-free. And in more sport-specific setting, we look at moving more efficiently. So running is a great example of this. I won't get into it today, as I'm just talking about the basic static posture as opposed to sports performance. But maybe in another video, we can look at running and how efficient you need to be there. If you notice, I have a number of other videos on weightlifting. The importance of being efficient when lifting is paramount. But I won't get into any of that today, because really, if you want to learn about running efficiency, I can't tell you anything that Kelly Starrett couldn't in his new book, Ready to Run. So moving on, let's look at the implications of poor posture. So the body will compensate if one or more segments of the chain is not in proper alignment. This can lead to pain, injury, dysfunction, breakdown of numerous systems of the body. We're looking at stress on visceral organs, and we'll talk about this again, but length and tension issues. So therefore, the ultimate postural alignment should be considered the foundation on which safe and effective exercise programs are built on. So if you're working with a client, let's say, and they have poor movement, if you keep practicing that poor movement, they're eventually going to get hurt. So you need to understand, which we're going to get into next, what exactly ideal alignment is. Oh, there we go. Ideal alignment. Simply put, ideal alignment is a position in which the body is most effectively able to absorb and produce force while maintaining structural integrity. You'll notice I've added a picture here of Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. It's just an illustration of perfect symmetry in the human body. But the photo I want to focus on is the first of three, right in the middle there. We will look at the frontal plane, posterior, and anterior planes, and go over what perfect posture is in each of those planes. This one, you can see right here, is from the lateral view, or the frontal plane. And we can see that the head is in neutral position, it's not tilted forward or back. The cervical spine, there's a normal curve, slight convex anteriorly. The scapulae are flat and against the upper back. The thoracic spine, again a normal curve, slight posterior convex. The lumbar spine has a normal curve which is slightly convex anteriorly. The pelvis, it's in a neutral position. Anterior superior iliac spine is in the same vertical plane as the symphysis pubis. We'll move down to the hip joints. They're in a neutral position, neither flexed or extended. Moving down the body some more, let's look at the knees. They're neither flexed nor hyperextended. Then lastly, at the bottom, let's look at the ankle joints. As you can see there, they're in a neutral position. The leg is vertical and at a right angle to the foot. So hopefully that picture helped line up that a little bit. Moving on here, we're going to look at the ideal alignment in the posterior view. So the head, it's in a neutral position. It's not tilted or laterally rotated. The cervical spine is linear and not flexed or rotated. The scapula flat against upper back, and it's the same in the horizontal plane. Thoracic spine, normal curves, slight convex posteriorly. We have the lumbar spine, which again, normal curve, but now we're looking for a slight convex anteriorly. The pelvis is a neutral position, and the PSIS is in the same horizontal plane. The hips, neither flexed nor extended. The knees, neither flexed nor hyperextended. The ankles, right, legs are vertical at right angles to the sole of the foot. Now moving on to the last sort of diagram I have here. We're looking at the anterior ideal alignment. So the head is in a neutral position. It's not tilted laterally nor rotated. The cervical spine linear, not flexed. The shoulders are level. The thoracic spine is not flexed laterally. The lumbar spine is also nice and linear. The pelvis, it's in a neutral position. Now we're looking at the ASIS, is in the same horizontal plane. The hip joints this time are neither flexed nor extended or rotated. Knees, hips in a neutral position, neither abducted or adducted. Ankles, right, natural position, neutral position rather. I'll be okay today. Moving on, what slide do we have next? Awesome. Okay, this is what I really wanted to get into. So we're looking at length-tension relationships. I know we can all read, and we all hate karaoke, but what we'll do here is just for emphasis, I'm going to go over this with you. So a balanced relationship must exist between antagonistic muscle groups which contribute to the movement of a joint. We're going to get into that a little bit deeper in the next few slides, because that's one thing that I mentioned earlier, is that it's all about balance. So it's not uncommon to see muscles at a joint in a short and tight position, and the corresponding antagonistic muscles in a long and weak position. The shortening of the muscles affects the joint and can pull the skeletal structures of the joint out of alignment. So I have here a very, very basic antagonistic muscle group list. We look at biceps and triceps, back and chest, right? Abs and lower back. You get the idea and can understand what's going on here. So moving on, I've got here some examples of muscular and imbalances. So the first one I want to look at is that bottom right picture. It may seem familiar to some of you. If not, then, well, hopefully you learned something. but it's called upper cross syndrome. It occurs when the deep back neck flexors and the lower trapezius, the serratus anterior, and the rhomboid muscles become weak, and the pectorals and the sternocleidomastoid and upper trapezius and levator scapulae muscles become tight. So there's a forward head posture, rounding of the shoulders, and a hunched upper back. These are all characteristics of upper cross syndrome. This tends to be quite common today as we generally live a sedentary lifestyle. When you think about it, we lay down to sleep, hopefully for about 8 hours. We sit and eat for breakfast, if we have breakfast at all. We sit in our car in traffic. We sit at work. We sit when we eat lunch. Do you see where I'm going with this? We sit a lot, and this point puts our joints into a compromised position, not just for upper cross syndrome, but as you'll see later, and also lower cross syndrome. But let's focus on UCS first. There is a fix for this. Treatment is specific to several areas of the body that will aid in the reduction of symptoms and correction of the problem. We'll break these regions and discuss them separately in order to explain in some detail what we're trying to achieve. The first area we'll discuss is the thoracic spine, and more precisely, the rhomboid and pectorals minor muscles. Remember, our goal here is for muscular balance, and that is the key to overcoming any sort of upper or lower cross syndrome is balance between the muscles. So upper cross syndrome stretches and lengthens and weakens the rhomboids. This occurs as a result of tight pectoralis minor muscles that protract or pull forward the shoulders. To counter this, it is important to retrain the rhomboids and facilitate and strengthen the muscles to function properly. To execute this, we will introduce the scapular pinch, the shoulder blade pinch, or a prone cobra. These are all exercises you can use to help strengthen your rhomboid and posterior muscles. So to do this, what you're going to do is retract or pull back the shoulders. So imagine trying to pinch or hold a quarter between your shoulder blades at the center of your back. Your palms should face forward and hold this position for about 20 to 30 seconds. It's important to relax into this pose. Repeat 2 or 3 times and do this periodically throughout the day. This pose is similar to a mountain pose in yoga. The prone cobra is the exact same, except you're laying with your stomach on the ground. So we looked at the rhomboids being lengthened and weak. The antagonistic muscles here would be tight and weak, are the pectoralis minor muscles. Since the pecs are tight, we need to stretch and lengthen these muscles in order to prevent shoulders from protracting or pulling forward. And here we're going to talk about what's called the field goal pose. It's really easy. You just got to find an open door, preferably open, you'll see why. Place your arms on one side of the door in an L shape or at right angles with both arms. Now take a few steps forward. The idea is to lengthen the already tight and short pectoralis muscles. Hold this pose for about 30 seconds and do it and repeat it a few times. It is extremely important to try and relax in this pose, right? You want to let the muscles stretch that are already tight. So last note on upper cross syndrome is that forward head posture that I talked about briefly before. Forward head posture puts a great deal of stress on the posterior neck muscles, the cervical discs, ligaments, nerves, and joints. To correct this, it's a fun little exercise we do. It's called a double chin. And all you're going to do in a seated position is draw your head back straight while maintaining a neutral position. So you're almost making a double chin. Now, if you want to increase the intensity a little bit, you can use your fingers to help increase the resistance. So next, we're going to head over to the top left picture. And now we're going to look at lower cross syndrome. So each year, millions of people suffer from a condition known as lower cross syndrome. As I mentioned before, sedentary lifestyles, excessive hours working at a desk or at a computer, postural changes, and even improper weightlifting can lead to lower cross syndrome. So this occurs when there's a muscular balance in the lower back, legs, glutes, and the abdominal region. Over time, if left untreated, this condition can lead to more serious problems such as early degenerative or arthritic changes and a whole bunch of other tightness issues. So lower cross syndrome is when the glutes, right, you're looking at your maximus, medius, and minimus, and the abdominal muscles become weak, and the hip flexors. We're looking at the rectus femoris and the iliopsoas, and the lumbar erector spinae become tight. So there's a forward tilt of the pelvis, increased lordosis, curve of the spine, and tight hamstrings are all characteristics of lower cross syndrome. The treatment for this will help with the reduction and correction of problems. We're looking at those tight and weak muscles that I mentioned earlier. The first one we'll focus on are the weak muscles. So these are your glutes, right? As mentioned before, your maximus, medius, and minimus, and your abdominal muscles. The second area of treatment will look at muscles that are tight. So we're looking at hip flexors that I already mentioned, your lumbar and spinal erectors. Remember, your goal is to achieve muscular balance. Balance is the key to overcoming any of these upper or lower cross syndromes. The exercise you want to do to strengthen your long and weak muscles would be planks or lunges, and to stretch your hip flexors and lower back. And that would help. So you can look at your yoga push-ups, really stretch out your hamstrings and lower back, and any squat exercise to strengthen those already weak muscles. Moving on. So I've talked about two postural conditions already. They were your upper and lower cross syndrome. Two next we're going to talk about here. I'm going to quickly go over anterior pelvic tilt, which doesn't happen too often. These are both lower cross syndrome conditions. So I'll let you read that part. But the one I want to focus on is the posterior pelvic tilt, aka your butt wink. And this is when your ASIS, your anterior superior iliac spine, rotates upwards towards the back, and the PSIS rotates downwards. So this creates an exaggerated hip extension, short and tight muscles, hamstrings, obliques, lower rectus abdominals, and like we mentioned before, long and weak muscles, your iliopsoas, your rectus femoris, and your spinal erectors. So moving on, I believe this is our, fortunately, last slide. So if you're still here, congratulations and thank you very much. I just want to cover a couple spinal different conditions, and some you can treat as a beginning personal trainer and some you can't. So let's go over the first one. If you look at the left, far left, that's a normal curvature of the spine. If you look to the right, the next one over, it's a very kyphotic spine, or kyphosis. So this is the excessive posterior convex curve of the thoracic spine. So the thoracic spine is going to excessive flexion. So it's often accompanied by a forward head position and an internal rotation of the shoulders, and your scapula are abducted and protracted. Next, moving on, we'll look at, lordosis. So again, this is the excessive anterior convex of the lumbar spine. So excessive lumbar spinal extension, characterized, as I mentioned before, by an anterior pelvic tilt. I really bring these two up first because they're mostly associated with upper and lower cross than it is a muscular imbalance. There's a number of these as well, so we can look at flat back, sway back, scoliosis 1 and 2. I can go into much more detail on those before, but really if you do have a client with scoliosis, then it is recommended that you have the knowledge and training to actually be able to train them safely and effectively. But what you should already have and should already be doing as a safe and effective and smart trainer is having a list, kind of like a repertoire of people that you work with in the medical field. So you should have doctors, physiotherapists, even chiropractors that you can turn to and use as a referral base. They can refer clients for you and you can refer clients for them. So, but last thing I do want to make clear is that as personal trainers, and why I focused on upper and lower cross syndrome today and not the other postural issues, is that you can't fix everything. Chances are you've just completed a couple weekend courses in our personal trainer. You have the skill set to help someone with poor posture, but you can't fix a condition such as scoliosis. I would even be wary in training someone with this condition if you weren't properly trained yourself. I'm not saying you can't, I'm just saying you need to have the right team of doctors, physios, as I mentioned, and other health professionals around you to make sure that you are giving your clients the best direction and information possible. So if you've made it this far in the video, thank you and congratulations. Hopefully this is the first of many, so leave comments down below with what you want me to cover next time. Until then, keep learning, keep growing that knowledge base that you have, and remember, as someone told me, I will tell you, somewhere out there, someone is warming up with your max. So have fun. Hopefully I helped you guys out today, and can give it a thumbs up and like, share, and subscribe and all that other YouTube stuff. Have a great day.